Alright, hello guys, and how's it going? Today we're going to be talking about Winter Storm Henry. This is that winter storm that we've been talking about for quite a while, and there has been much model confusion. They cannot get this one down. That's why I'm going to be pretty conservative in this forecast. You'll see what I mean later on. Now, before we get started with this video, though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this with your friends and family if they do live in the affected regions. Let's get right into things. So we're looking at our warnings, watches, and advisories. You can see we do have some winter weather advisories there for West Virginia, upstate New York through Vermont and New Hampshire, and then also for northern Michigan in the lower and upper peninsula there. So we're going to take a look at our winter storm track. Here was our one from a couple videos ago, and you can see this looked pretty major back then. We also had multiple model runs. I think it was like 4 model runs in a row where they were trending south, and typically they continue with the trends. So we saw it for Boston and New York City. It seemed possible for a major snowstorm, but also I had mentioned in that video that it could go pretty far north, and that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever either. And sure enough, here's where we're at today. You can see that storm track has moved pretty far north. Let's add that first layer here, and as you can see, this is our lower chance of accumulation / snow showers. The accumulations are going to be spotty within here, and for the most part, if you live in this region, I expect you to see flakes, but not necessarily see accumulations, though this is a very wide area, and I think some areas will get heavier amounts of snow. Now, our second and final layer, this is our moderate chance of accumulation and could be major. I expect mostly a dusting to maybe 4 or 5 inches of snow within these 2 blue areas. There's one for West Virginia and one for up there in the interior northeast. Now we're about to move on and look at your simulated radar, which is going to be very exciting to take it hour by hour. As you can see, we're starting out at about 11 a.m. here. This video will be out a couple hours later than what I'm saying, obviously, so this is probably in the past by the time you're watching this. I make these videos and it takes a couple hours to edit. That's why that happens. But here you can see we have some snow entering upstate New York, and then some mixing going on the very northern edges of the precipitation there for Vermont and New Hampshire. We see a lot of precipitation down there for the mid-Atlantic as well. Our low pressure system is located in northern Pennsylvania. Now let's move on to, I would say this is about 12, which is probably more around the time you're seeing this video. And we see that snow really starting to mix in for the northern edges of the precipitation there in the White Mountains and then the northern Green Mountains as well. And upstate New York, we're getting more and more moderate snow, which is probably starting to accumulate by this point. But you can see there is some green infiltrating into the blue, and that's going to really create some doubt in my mind that we will have all snow. I think they're picking up on the idea that we will have some mixing issues, and that's why the confidence has gone lower and lower for this storm, and it's becoming more of a headache to forecast than anything. Let's move on, and this is going to be more towards the late afternoon, and we see the Adirondacks, the northern portions of Vermont and New Hampshire, and maybe even the northern portions of Maine by this point are mostly getting the snow. The Finger Lakes, you're all done by this point. Our low pressure system is located over, maybe around Albany actually by this point, so much further north than what we were originally expecting this storm to track. Now we're about to move on towards later in the day tonight, heading into tomorrow, where we're going to get a much better idea of where we could see the heaviest snow. Now this is going to be by about 7 or 8 p.m. here on this frame, and you can see we have colder and colder temperatures moving in, so that snow line is moving further south by this point. We see upstate New York, it's pretty much said and done by this point. We see northern Vermont and New Hampshire, though, still getting some light to moderate snow, and then some more snow heading into the state of Maine. But you can see that we have it, the low pressure system is a 997 millibar low pressure system, and it's pretty far north. They're basically horizontal with, I would say, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Now let's move on, and this is going to be by about 12 a.m. tonight, heading into Sunday. And we see most of the snow, again, it's becoming more moderate and actually intensifying by this point on this model, but upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, the snow is really filling out too. Again, you can tell it's just much further north than what we were originally expecting, and that's because the low pressure system is heading in earlier, and it beats the trough in. If this storm was hitting more on Sunday, earlier on Sunday into Sunday afternoon, we would have that original storm track where we would see mostly snow for New Jersey and up into Boston. And really what's changed on the models is, again, the time frame of when the low pressure system heads in, and that can mess up the whole look of the storm, as you've seen if you've been keeping up with these videos about Winter Storm Henry. Again, I apologize for the inaccuracies with the models. Now let's move on towards about, I would say this is about 3 a.m. and we see for Vermont things are finishing up, but for New Hampshire and Maine, we're just getting started. Things are really starting to fill out, and we're starting to see Massachusetts maybe even get a bit of precipitation here on this model. Very, very interesting. Boston could get some tail end flakes at least. We'll take a look at that in just a second. Now we're switching over to our NAM model, and this is about by 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. And the people in Massachusetts will either be very happy that the Patriots won a playoff game or very disappointed that they lost a wild card game. Let me know your thoughts on that. I know that's I don't usually talk about sports, but let me know who you think's going to win that one if you are still watching this video. Is the Titans going to win or the Patriots? But the snow heads in a bit late for a snow game, obviously. Again, we're by 7 a.m. tomorrow. The game will be all said and done. We do see some lake effect there for the interior Northeast, but really we see Maine and Massachusetts mostly being impacted. We do have snow showers for Vermont and New Hampshire still by this point, but most of the snow, again, for the coast of Massachusetts in through Maine by this point. And again, that's by about 7 a.m. Now, let's move towards 12 p.m., and it's already finishing up. You can see it's racing out of here, and we basically see some snow showers for Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, but Massachusetts is all said and done, and for the most part, all the moderate and sustained snow is all said and done by this point as well. Now, let's get into your modeled snowfall forecast, starting out with your NAM 3KM model, which is the model that we looked at there for our simulated radar, and you can see we do have some heavier amounts there for West Virginia through Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, but I will warn you the NAM is known for overdoing snowfall amounts, and typically I take a couple inches off of what it's expecting in order to get an accurate outlook of what it's expecting. So here for West Virginia and North Carolina and Tennessee, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some maybe around 5 to 6 inches of snow on the very highest elevations and peaks of those mountains. So that's what I'm getting from this. Also for upstate New York through Vermont and New Hampshire, I don't think we will get above 6 inches of snow. I think we will be mostly 3 to 6 inches of snow, even for the highest of elevation areas in the bullseye there. But there will be a pretty widespread amount of 1 to 4 inches of snow. And then again, some scattered in 4 to maybe 5 inches amounts there for the bullseyes. Now, as we look at our GFS model, you can see it's much lighter, so I don't usually take any off of the GFS. I take it as is, even though it tends to not be very accurate, but I don't take any amounts off. The amounts are usually right. The placement is really what can be iffy. So you can see, again, for West Virginia, we're expecting to maybe cross over that 6-inch mark there for the higher elevation areas. Maybe Mount Washington or some of those higher elevations in New Hampshire getting over 6 inches, but really it's just a pretty scattered in amount of 4 to maybe approaching 6 inches there in those purplish colors, but really the lighter blues is where we're expecting 1 to 4 inches of snow there for the New England areas. Now, your GEM model, I feel like I agree with this one the most, actually. Again, West Virginia, maybe some dots of 6 inches plus, but really we don't cross over that amount anywhere in the northeastern United States, but from the Finger Lakes regions of New York, maybe even in the Pennsylvania border there, all the way up through New Hampshire and into Maine, we see those scattered amounts of 4 to 6 inches of snow, or 4 to approaching 6 inches of snow, but really for the most part we stay at about 1 to 4 inches of snow. And last but not least, here's your European ensemble model. In the blues, we're expecting 2 to 6 inches of snow, and I completely agree with this one as well. I would say this is probably the most accurate out of any of them. Now, let's get into my official snowfall forecast, which is going to be very, very exciting to take a look at to see what we're expecting for our final forecast for Winter Storm Henry. All right, so here we go. We're starting out with our first layer here, and this is going to be our dusting to 3-inch layer for Winter Storm Henry. We see some areas of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, and then down through Virginia and the North Carolina and Tennessee border. We see that dusting to 3-inch area kind of extend through those mountain ranges down there. Again, you were probably able to pick up on that during the model runs that we showed there. But from Cleveland up through Buffalo, through Syracuse, into Burlington, and then all of Maine, and most of Vermont and New Hampshire, we're expecting at least a dusting for a lot of these white areas, upwards of up to 3 inches for all of these areas. Now let's add our second layer, our second and last layer that is, and this is our 3 to 6 inch layer. We are expecting these amounts for the higher elevation areas in West Virginia, also from the Adirondacks through northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and in through the interior regions of Maine. We're expecting 3 to 6 inches, maybe approaching 6 inches on some of those very high elevation areas. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends and family. I do apologize for the models, again, the models inaccuracies earlier on, and I'm going to take it into consideration and learn from the mistakes. I'm going to start waiting maybe a day later to start talking about storms than I have been, because the models have just been so terrible this year that it's just really hard to really pinpoint what we think is going to happen, because as you saw, it's moved hundreds of miles north just from 2 days ago, and that's just not how it's been in years past, and we're going to have to adjust to how the models have been. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. Again, I apologize, and I'll see you guys in the next video.